All right, everyone. Welcome to the very first episode of What You Doing with Kimmy Dole. And today I am double excited, not only because it's the first episode, but because I have one of my very good friends, Jackie Fardella. How are you?
Hi! I'm so excited.
I'm excited too. Well, thank you for joining me. And I've known you for a very long time. I won't say how many years, but
Not go there.
a pretty few years, pretty long time. Now you've evolved into what is the LA tarot girl, what I call you. So tell me how you even got involved in into tarot and all that.
God, ever since I can remember, I always had a really strong interest in things like that, and like the mysteries of the universe. Like, I loved learning about all different religions. When I was little, I asked my mom if I could go to Catholic school. Like, I don't know what kid even asked that question. I was like, what was I thinking? Like, I wanted to be a nun at one point in my life, but like, because that was all I knew, like, was I grew up Roman Catholic, so like that's what I knew about religion. But I always thought like Wicca and all of these other things were really interesting. So I would go to tarot readers, like, probably start whenever I was able to get out of the house, probably starting in high school when I was able to drive around with friends and stuff. And I started going to readers, and then once I got into my 20s, I started like learning about it a little bit more. And then I lived with a girl when I moved to LA, and she had a tarot deck. And so we would just like, we had a nice patio and we'd sit out there every night and just like play with tarot cards. And then I was like, I really want to like go dive deep. Like, I want to really learn without like reading the book and all that stuff. And if you would have told me that I would be reading for people like professionally or writing about it and have a column in a magazine, like, never in a million years would I have been like, yeah, totally. Like, no.
That's about right.
Yeah.
So what do you think is the biggest misconception or even like misinformation that people have when it comes to tarot reading?
I think that one of the biggest misconceptions about tarot is that it makes things happen, and that it's kind of like a dark magic. It really isn't. Like, the tarot deck is literally just it's like a picture book. It's the story of life from birth to death, like, and all the little details in between, and that's what each card symbolizes. So whatever comes out in a tarot reading is not like, it's not making something happen. It's just telling you, okay, if you keep going this way, this is how things will unfold for you.
Or what sort of questions do you ask? Is it like a yes or no, or is
It can be a yes or no question. I'm nosy, so I like to like dive in deeper. I'm like, let's find out more about that. But it really depends, and you can ask whatever you want, really. I personally have certain limits and boundaries, just like for my own ethical standards. Like, I won't answer certain questions about like if it's like a serious health issue or something like that, because you don't want to, things can change, and you know what, you're not always right. You get messages, and you can translate them in the best possible way. If you do have a specific goal, I would say, rather than ask when it's going to happen, is more like, how can you make it happen? What do you need to do to get there? Like, what are the steps you need to take? It's funny because most people don't think to ask that, but it's so obvious. The way I never thought to ask that either before I started doing tarot, and I'm like, oh my god, it's so obvious, like all the answers are right here. Like, you just need to check off the list. It's so you don't have to like leave it up to the universe. You can do something about it. People like to spy on relationships a lot.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a useful thing about tarot too. If you're like suspicious about something and you want to find out a little more, you could definitely do that. So I'm not condoning this behavior, but
Disclaimer, just a small disclaimer.
Yeah.
So how do you know that you're going to someone legit as opposed to, do you remember the movie Ghost with Whoopi Goldberg? She was like, you're in trouble, girl, How do you know that you're going to someone that knows what they're talking about as opposed to someone like the role that she played in that movie, where at first she was,
Yeah.
just saying anything to anyone to make a quick buck.
I will definitely say there are a lot of people that aren't legit, and it's kind of really sad, and it sucks for people who do real readings, because it's like, just put the effort in. Like, if you're gonna put all the effort into faking it, you might as well actually
Learn.
But for me, it's very obvious now. Before it's harder to tell. Like, the people that are scam artists tend to really tell you everything they can that's gonna make you leave feeling like good, like, and make you leave wanting to come back. So either the top, I think, like, the top way to tell if someone's scamming you is that they try to sell you. Like, they try to be like, sell you it's almost like a package, like, oh, you have a blockage, I can remove it for you with like a light candle, I'll do this, that, and the other thing, it's only like and it's always like $300 or $500, something crazy that you're like, what? Like, to light a candle? Like, are you serious? First of all, if you did have like some issue in some area like that where you could do so, you can light the candle for your freaking self. Like, you can go to the store, buy that. You can go, there's a place called House of Intuition out here. They're like opening all over, but they have these candles, and they tell you, like, okay, if you want to like attract money, you can light this candle. If you want to attract this, like this candle. Like, you can literally go to the store for like $15, get these candles and do it yourself. Like,
Ooh,
you don't need a psychic to do it. And it honestly, like, these candles, I've seen things happen. Like, I have
good
seen
or bad.
some shit. Like, and it's not like, and people tend to romanticize it into like a movie scene, like where all of a sudden like things are swirling and things. It doesn't really happen. It unfolds like regular life things. But you're like, oh my God, like, this is what I was trying to attract. And theoretically, you don't even need a candle. It's just, putting your energy into the idea of whatever it is you want. If there's nothing tangible that you could do about whatever this goal is yet, then just putting your energy and your thoughts and like intending that, like, that's what you want for your future, or that's where you want things to go for you, like, that is a big start in itself.
So then what's the difference between like a psychic, a tarot reader, a medium, astrologist? What are the differences in that? Okay. And do you believe in all of those?
Interesting question. So like psychic and intuitive is essentially in the same realm, but there's different kinds of psychic abilities or intuition. So some people, so the most popular one that people know of is clairvoyance, which is seeing. So picture, the best way I can describe that is like when you think of a memory and you can kind of like relive that memory in your head, and you see like, whatever, if you went on vacation, you see the beach and you can picture the palm trees, and like whatever you're picturing in your head, it's the same type of experience, except this is like something that you don't know of. Like, you'll see a balloon, or you'll see like whatever,
like a vision.
Yeah, you have a vision, but that's what the experience is like. When people hear vision, it's like they think that this like really crazy thing is happening. It's like, no,
they think like the Raven Simone.
Yeah, like, oh, like you stopped it.
Or even like the Charmed.
Exactly. Like, it's not quite like that exciting, but another one is clairaudience. So that's when you hear things. So, and that would be like into if you get a song stuck in your head. So it's kind of like that type of an experience. And then there's clairsentience, which is feelings. So like some people will start to feel emotions during a reading, like they'll get nervous, or they'll get anxiety, or they'll start getting really hot or cold, and that's part of the reading. Like, it's all about like different senses, basically. Mediumship and intuition or psychics are different. So every medium is a psychic or intuitive, but not every psychic and intuitive is a medium. The idea for mediums is they can connect with people that have passed. I'm not a medium, but you can apparently, from as far as I know, you can develop that at any point in your life. So you may not have started out with that, and then all of a sudden one day you're like, what the hell is it? And I'm just kind of like, I'm good with not having that, but we'll see what happens.
That's like a tough cross to bear. 'Cause it's a lot of like emotions and feelings involved in that, like other people's emotions and feelings as well as yours.
Exactly.
Where do crystals fall into all of this? Because I've seen some have like crystals around, and I know crystals carry energy and that sort of stuff, but where does it fall into like tarot reading and the combination of them?
Yeah, it's all energy. So if you talk to any intuitive, they'll be like, it's all energy. Energy is everywhere. Energy is everything. The same thing with crystals. Like if you look, like certain regions are really rich in certain types of like gems and minerals and things like that. And if there's a certain amount of like considered high vibrational places in the world and really low vibrational places in the world.
What's considered like a high vibrational?
A high vibration place would be one of them I know is Mount Shasta in California. It's like this big mountain, and it's supposedly very like spiritual and therapeutic if you go there. And a low vibrational place would be considered a place like Las Vegas. It's one of the lowest vibrations.
Really?
And it's considered like what is on top of these things, like, you know, it's like that area is considered low vibration, but then look what's happening there. Do you believe that it takes like quite a bit of this like mineral to actually, you know, make probably a difference? Like I wear them, but like I don't know, it make me feel better. But I really do believe that you would probably have to have like a significant amount of it to really make a like a noticeable impact.
So how do you think that you're able to mesh kind of those two worlds and be both? Like, you know, you can practice your Christianity or whatever it is, as well as read your tarot cards without them negating each other or being a bad thing.
It's definitely a modern concept, because for a very long time, like you can't do, but it's like, oh no, bruja. No, like my mom still hates that word, and she gets mad whenever like I'm referred to as a bruja, or like if I say it, like she has a very bad connotation. Like so I think it is a very like traditional old school mentality in terms of that. Like you're not really supposed to do tarot or fortune telling or like anything in that realm. But someone actually brought this to my attention the other day, and it blew my mind. They're like, what do you think that church is for? Like when you go to mass, it's a collection of people all putting their energy into one way. Like they're all putting their energy into one thing. I'm like, oh my God, that's so true. I never thought about that. They're like,
That's
yeah,
true.
like it's a real thing. Like that's what they're doing.
Yeah,
like,
and even with like Catholic churches, for example, they're usually designed so that the pews are like in a form of a cross, so that you do focus your energy all in one direction, which is like towards the priest, or you know, like the Jesus Christ hanging behind him or whatever it may be. But yeah, that's pretty
and I was like mind blown. I was like, oh my God, like everything I ever knew. But you know, for me, like I'm very much, I think that beliefs are so personal, and so like I don't think that anyone should feel like they have to only go with one thing. It's like, if this makes sense to you, if this works for you, like why not? I consider myself like still Roman Catholic.
Yeah.
Go to church, and I'm still, you know, gonna do all things. So
people are kind of scared of what they don't know, and it might seem like it's the occult and that equals evil, when that is not necessarily the truth. People may be scared, they'll just write it off and consider it like a negative thing, instead of actually knowing and researching and learning about what it actually is. But that's funny that you mentioned that your mom like still to this day doesn't like it, because recently the Walter Mercado documentary came out on Netflix, and people who are not familiar with Walter Mercado, he was this Puerto Rican astrologer, and he was like known all over Latin America. I find it really interesting now is that he had his own astrology segment on the news. So like when your parents used to watch like the 6 o'clock news or whatever it was in the evening, and they would cut to the weather, just like they would cut to Walter
Yeah.
Mercado's like segment. He had his own astrology segment, and it was part of like the real news. In American culture, we have people like Miss Cleo, and then, you know, like she ended up being like a fraud or a joke or whatever it was. But with him, like he had these extravagant outfits, while people like that are traditional, like your mom and someone like my mom, they would consider like the word bruja or whatever like a negative thing. Meanwhile, growing up, while we grew up, that was every day, an everyday thing that he
Like
had that segment.
is about the conditioning, and just again, like you said, it's like the fear of the unknown when it's like not something you're familiar with. And also, we've all been brought up, if you're a Catholic, you've been brought up to be like, especially if you're Latin, like you're very superstitious, like,
Yeah.
oh my God, like
And I find that so funny.
any of that, you know, not at all. It's just, my mom actually almost threw out my tarot cards when she found them. Like she, first of all, growing up, like she liked that I was interested in religion when it was our religion, but anything else, she was like, getting nervous about it. You know, she's like, I don't. She's like,
Very
oh,
suspicious.
my dad thought it was funny, and he would buy me like little witchcraft books, like.
Yeah.
And my mom was like, I can't believe you would buy that. Like they get into a fight about it.
Yeah.
And you know, it took her some time to really get okay with the idea. And I think that once I explained to her really like what it was and how readings work, and I had to really go through a lot with her for her to finally come to a place of peace with it, and feel like I wasn't doing anything
Bad,
putting my soul in jeopardy.
right? And it's funny that you mentioned that your mom doesn't like the word bruja, because I feel like now we've sort of taken that word and made it something positive. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's something bad. I remember growing up, my mom was very into like the holistic medicine. So before she took us to a doctor, she would, you know, make us some herbal tea concoction of some sort. And I remember my dad being like, oh, like that's some bruja, you know, like, and like my mom was like, no, like it's natural. But like he would make it seem like it was like being a bruja was a bad thing. Meanwhile, all she was doing was using natural things from the earth to try to make us feel better.
I've tried to explain that to my mom, and she's just not having it still. Like she's still like,
yeah, there's still negative.
There
are definitely still negative connotations to that word. But how do you think it's changed for you, seeing that your mom also thinks it's like a negative thing?
I think a lot of it is that if you look at our whole society, they've all turned towards a more holistic approach. Like more people in general are just attracted, like they want to be more natural, they want to be more holistic and all these things. And it's like there's a huge shift going on in general. And I think people are just more open to things like this, to open to, you know, spirituality of all kinds of things they don't understand. I hate to use the word like, you know, demonize it, but it kind of is like that's what it used to be.
Yeah, because even back in Salem, we had women getting burned. Any little thing that they did would qualify them to be a witch. You can see that over time, it wasn't just like the Latin community, but it was even in American culture and American history. Like people kind of mesh like santeria and brujeria and just think that they're one and the same.
Definitely different variables.
Yeah.
For sure. Like there's some things I'm like, I'm even like,
right.
I don't know, like
right.
You do you. And I know like my friend got a reading from someone who did Santeria, and she was like, I'm never going to. She was like, he was too accurate. I'm not going back. She's like, you freaked me out. And I'm like, okay. But there's different variables, and when it comes to that, and just like there's different like mainstream religions and different practices, it's the same thing with this. Like,
yeah, I think when people think of that, sometimes they picture like the chicken head or all the blood.
Very cinematic.
Yeah, like somewhere like in a dark corner, dark room or something. So so when they picture something
Exactly.
like that, I think that that's what they think, and they're like, oh no, like
Yeah,
that's a bad day.
that's one thing that I really wanted to be mindful about when I started writing and kind of like putting this Tarotscope out there, is that like I wanted people to feel like not nervous. Like I didn't want it to look so scary, dark, and ominous and occultish. Like I
Mhm.
wanted people to feel like, oh, feel good about getting a reading, because it should be something like, fun. I mean, it doesn't have to be so serious and dark.
Yeah. So what goes into a reading for those that have never gotten one or are interested in getting one for the first time? Like what should you expect?
Some readers will do like a meditation beforehand, or they'll have you shuffle the cards, or they do it themselves. It depends on the reader for sure, but it's basically, you'll come in, how I work is you come in and you can ask whatever questions you want. So if you have any specific questions, you're free to ask whatever you'd like, and then I kind of take it from there. Some people come in, they're like, I don't really have a specific question, like what do I, just tell me something, like what do I need to know? So I'm like, okay, I'll start off, we'll do general, and then if you have any questions off of what comes out from there, we'll move out from there. But overall, it's kind of like there's nothing to be nervous about, nothing crazy happens. Like you just come in, you sit down, like what do you need, what's on your mind, and then you
Right.
just kind of either ask them a question or just let them do it, if you're not comfortable saying anything yet. Some people don't want to say anything, they just like
Mhm.
let you talk the whole time, and that's okay. Like, whatever you want to do.
I think that some people are scared from what they've seen like on TV or in movies or whatever. You have like the tarot reader pulling out the cards and then you get like that death card.
Like,
And then, yeah.
actually, the death card is not a bad card. I
Okay,
know.
so why not?
The death card is not necessarily about like the ending of a physical life. It's more about the ending of something and the beginning of something else. So it's like, in order to start any new chapter in your life, something has to end, something has to go. So it's more about that. Like, it could be about moving, or like ending a job and then moving into a new one. It's more about those types of things. It's
Mhm.
very rarely, if ever, like about like you're gonna die. Like it's like typically
You have 2 days
reading,
to
like
live.
that kind of stuff doesn't really even come up. I don't think that I've ever experienced something like that coming out in a reading, even though someone asked me once about something, but I wouldn't read it for her because I was
Wait,
like,
did they ask like how long they had to live or something like that?
they asked me about a family member,
Oh,
and I was like, I'm like, there's no right answer here. First of all, no matter what I tell you, like
yeah.
there's no good outcome here. So like that's not something that I'll touch, I'm like, I could tell you what you can do, like the best thing that you could do for this person right now, like what they need from you. But
Hmm.
that's like, that's really it. I can't be like yes or no, like, or like say goodbye. Like I'm not going there. I'm sorry.
Are preparing those wills.
You're gonna
So
have to sign legal documents first.
sign right here. So when you pull a card, I remember I had someone that was just learning the cards. He pulled a card, and when I asked him what that meant, he was like, I don't know. What does it mean to you? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, you pulled the card. Like, what, you tell me. So when you pull cards, like, do you interpret them, or is it up to the person to interpret them?
I know some people that do, like they kind of play around with tarot, but they're not tarot readers. So when they go get readings, they try to read it. Like when the tarot reader comes out, I'm like, it's not going to be what you think it is, because
Yeah.
every card that comes out is for that reader to read it that specific way, because you're going to read it a completely different way. If you tried to read the same reading, like you would have a completely different interpretation of what it is,
Interesting.
because the cards don't mean the same thing. So like
Yeah.
you're pulling, like the reason you get certain cards is so it's like telling you like this is what the
Hmm.
significance is. If that makes sense.
So
Yeah.
tell me what the difference is between like tarot cards and angel cards and all these different types of cards?
So basically there's tarot and oracle cards are the two like biggest ones. Tarot cards are kind of just more integral, very detailed. There's typically no messages on them. Oracle cards are more like if for specific messages. So they're really great if you're not like trying to learn how to do tarot, but you want to kind of do little like fun pulls or anything for yourself and get messages. Oracle cards are a great alternative for you because they have the message right there. You don't really have to do anything. It's telling you blanket statement like this is this, that's that. Like our readers use it as an add-on, like they'll do readings and they pull oracle cards as like validations for what they just read. So it's like
So a combination of both.
exactly.
Oh, okay. Do you see things that happen on like TV, whether it's like this whole coronavirus pandemic or something as, crazy as like a Kanye and, rant? And like, do you see something that happens and you're like, oh, I have to pull out the card, what's gonna happen? Do you do things like that?
It is really tempting. I think when I first started doing them and really getting into it, I pulled on everything all the time. Like I wanted to know everything. Like when coronavirus started, I had a lot of people asking me like, what do you see? And like, when is this gonna end? What's happening in the next few months and stuff like that. And I do get time, like people want timelines on things a lot. And the thing with timelines, so like I've definitely had a lot of experiences where pulling timelines have been accurate, but timing is very tricky when it comes to tarots and it's not super reliable. You'll always hear readers be like, time is fluid, like
Yeah, no, that's true.
like everything's happening at once, like there's no real like future. So that I think timing can be hard because I mean we always want to know naturally like when we want to know, is it gonna happen now tomorrow next week, like, and to a degree you could try to pull the timing but it's not gonna be 100%, like, so don't like have your heart set on that timing if that happens.
What made you start your LA Tarotscope?
I really wanted to do something for myself for a while, and I wanted to develop Tarotscope, and I just wasn't really sure the direction I wanted to go yet. And then coronavirus hit, and so I started losing, as we all did, a lot of work. And I was like, well, I might as well start Tarotscope LA now. Like, what better time? So I figured, just put it out there, and people really liked it. People were like, I look at it every week. It's so great. It's so interesting. I really love doing readings for people, and I love the responses that I get, like really make it, for me, it gives me like a sense of purpose and fulfillment when people are like, oh my God, like this helped me, or this is exactly what's going on. Like when you get that, like it's not why you do it. You don't do it for like the ego validation, but it feels nice. So
when you do them according to your sign, your astrological sign. What's the connection with that?
So that actually came about because when I was pitching the idea of Tarotscope to him, I noticed that they didn't have a horoscope section. And I was like, well, I'm not an astrologist, but I read tarot. And I was like, maybe I can do a Tarotscope. Like, so my idea was kind of like base tarot reading off of like divided by by zodiac signs. So like just it down that way. And apparently that it was kind of it wasn't really like a thing when I thought that I invented it, but then it kind of blew up after that. Like it just started getting really like becoming really popular because people are familiar and comfortable more so with astrology, I think.
Right.
Like, there's a horoscope section in every magazine, every newspaper, like the news, it's everywhere. So people are comfortable with it and they know it. So when they see that, I think like that also has kind of helped ease people into like the transition of like taking that step into tarot. So
all right, well, tell everyone where they can find you or get a reading and all that good stuff.
You can find me on Instagram at Tarotscope. I have a YouTube channel called Tarotscope LA and a website, tarotscope.la. So you can check any of those out. I'm on all of them, have readings everywhere. And you can always message me directly if you would like a personal reading as well.
Or even message me and I could just be that plug. All right, well, thank you so much, Jackie, for being the very first person here on What You Doing, and now I know what you doing. So thank you so much. This was so much fun, and I'm so glad that I got to share my very first episode with you.
You too.
So thank you, and see you guys soon. Bye.